Next, we're going to have a session with, it was actually one of my favorite submissions and something that I think about a lot whenever going through hiring, especially in technology. It's called Hidden Assets, the Business Advantage in Hiring Older Talent by Jennifer Houlihan. In this fast-paced session, you'll find out a little bit about what smart companies have discovered by leveraging older, experienced workforce as they position themselves as the forefront leaderships in the future of work. Leave OK Boomer at the door and get ready to learn a little bit about how accessing untapped talent can supercharge your company's trajectory. So I'm super happy to welcome Huli to the stage and talk to us about hidden assets. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here this morning. I'm glad you guys are having such a successful week.
Yeah, and I love your background. It's so fun and colorful. Okay, I'll let you take the stage. See you later.
Well, I am a designer, but I'm also very serious. You can tell because I'm wearing black. All right, so let's talk about older talent. There is a lot of talk about gender bias, racial bias, culture bias at work, and each of those are important for many reasons. But one of the biggest and the most problematic types of bias we face is bias of age. And this is when we evaluate people based on their age is becoming a major challenge in the workplace, especially for startups and fast-growing companies. Several years ago, Deloitte asked about 10,000 companies this question. They wanted to know, do you consider age a competitive advantage in your organization? Competitive advantage or competitive disadvantage? And the answer probably won't surprise you. Over 2/3 of the companies responded that age was a competitive disadvantage for their employees. And that's consistent with AARP data. They showed that 2/3 of individuals over the age of 45 have experienced age-related discrimination when it comes to applying for a job or being in the workplace. In other words, if you are older, you are likely to be considered less capable, less able to adapt, less willing to roll up your sleeves and do something new than some of your younger coworkers. And what we're facing right now, in a way, is a perfect storm. We've got a lot of things going on right now in terms of demographic trends. The workforce is aging at a really rapid rate. People age 60 or over are projected to outnumber children under the age of 5 within the next year. And by 2025, we expect that a full quarter of the workers in the United States are going to be over the age of 55. So not even retirement age, but over the age of 55. In the US, you know this, that job vacancies have outnumbered job applicants since 2018. And even with COVID, we're still seeing some sense of that movement. It's largely the result of baby boomers reaching retirement age faster than millennials can replace them in the workplace, but they're not all retiring. So the first factor, and one we should celebrate certainly, is that we are all living longer. The average life expectancy of a human being is apparently going up 3 months every year. At the beginning of the 20th century, life expectancy was 47. If you can believe that. That wasn't that long ago. And it's now 79. By the time we get to the end of this century, average life expectancy is expected to be 100. And that means a lot of things for the workplace and for the market. Second, young people are having fewer children and fertility rates are declining. This is not just a US thing. This is happening in the US, the UK, Japan, Germany. The birth rate has dropped far below replacement. And so that means the only way those economies can grow is through improvements in productivity, which is not really happening, or certainly not happening at scale, or immigration, which is politically loaded and very complicated. So you add that to the fact that while a lot of boomers are reaching retirement age, not all of them are leaving the workplace, and they need places to go to contribute. So we've got a lot of things playing in one time. Aging is a long-term demographic shift. And the fact is that the world is going to look much older in the decades to come. Employers, including startups, need to adapt to this. Confronting negative age biases and stereotypes, though, is just the beginning. We really need to be thinking about how we're going to redesign the workforce. And as leaders in the startup economy, you have a unique opportunity to be leaders in this conversation about the future of work. The numbers are striking. Aging is as big a factor as business is facing as climate change, as automation, globalization. It's a massive shift. And what that means is that now there is a call for innovation, and this is where startups shine. This is where we look to you for leadership and inspiration. Over the past several years, some of the big tech giants like IBM and Intel, they have faced multiple massive age discrimination lawsuits. There was a report in 2018 by Mother Jones and ProPublica, and they accused IBM of eliminating more than 20,000 jobs held by American employees age 40 or over. 20,000 jobs, that was almost 60% of its estimated US job cuts. Just happened to be people over the age of 40. And researchers theorize that one of the reasons for that is that companies, these more conventional enterprise companies, are stuck in the notion that people want to retire in their early 60s, that's everybody's fantasy. That's what everybody wants to do. But not only are retirees actually truly motivated to put their skills to good use, our economy loses money every year by not tapping in to this vital experienced workforce. And startups are usually a step ahead of enterprise, but in this case, we're still missing out. On average, 27% of employees in firms that are under 5 years old are between the ages of 25 and 34. Those companies, sorry to be a downer on your Friday, but a lot of those companies are known for failing. As many as 90% of startups fold. And the result is many factors, not the least of which, in some instances, is the founder's inexperience. The shortcomings like a lack of knowledge of the market or an inappropriate business model can be partly to blame. Older adults with deep business experience can help make these pivotal business decisions for new and growing companies. They can work with founders to make sure that experience and wisdom are being brought to bear, even if that's not something that the founder has personal lived experience with. You can get that on your team and avoid some of these mistakes. Experienced talent could keep a company from failing. IT in particular skews young. I know not all startups are IT, but I wanted to hit this point because I think it's important. While the demand for IT candidates is high, the supply is low. And most teams, most HR teams and most recruiters generally lean toward getting someone who is fresh in their career, right? But with 10,000 baby boomers reaching retirement age every day, the number of IT employees leaving the workforce is greater than the number entering, despite all the efforts to get students to be interested in STEM careers. That pipeline is still not getting filled. 61% of IT workers are between 22 and 44 years old. And Smart Assets reports that the retiring boomers, the ones that are leaving the workforce, are taking with them all the hard-earned IT skills they learned over their years in IT administration and support. If we as businesses could tempt just a small percentage of those folks to come back into the workforce and bring that IT knowledge and experience with them, we would have the opportunity to maybe help companies get past this pain point. Austin in particular skews young. And we've all heard this. The average age in Austin is 35 years old. Well, that may be true, but Austin is also among the top 10 cities in the nation with the most seniors still in the workforce. There was a study done last year to find out which cities, over 200,000 people, had the most individuals age 65 and up still in the workplace. And Austin came in 6th out of many, many cities. In fact, Chicago and New York didn't even crack the top 25. It was all metros about the size of Austin and Durham, North Carolina, places like that. The analysis also examined cities that were experiencing the most growth in terms of the senior workforce over time. And Austin has seen a 95% growth in our senior workforce since 2009. Comparatively, the growth of seniors in the population in general in Austin has only grown at 53%. So you can see a lot more folks are continuing to stay in the workplace. So that's our landscape, right? That's the backdrop that we're exploring this issue against. So let's bust some myths. And I want to start by saying age bias is not a myth. Age bias is a real thing. Many employers give lip service to not being ageist, but they actually aren't proactively trying to engage older employees. They aren't welcoming them with open arms. They aren't providing ramps to keep those experienced workers on board. And there are a lot of negative views out there, and you probably heard them. The stamina, right? That's a buzzword that's used for older folks. Technological ability, their eagerness for new ways of doing things. Older employees, people say, are more expensive. We can't afford to have older employees. They cost too much. People at the end of their careers, the compensation has grown accordingly, and we can't afford that. Or young companies and startups in particular often seek what they describe as culture fit, which can be considered code for a lot of things, but it usually means hiring people that look just like the people we already have. And when it comes to promotions and raises, there are all kinds of things that can happen to older workers that can pass them over without giving the appearance of discrimination, whether it's downsizing or reorganizing. Ageism, well, it's a problem in tech. It's especially pervasive in the startup community. And in fact, there was a survey done by First Round Capital, and they found that 37% of startup founders believe that investors display some kind of age bias. And we'll talk more about VCs in a little bit. But according to that data, the majority of founders think that ageism kicks off earlier than perhaps you think. It kicks off against tech professionals at the age of 36. 36, and you're considered over the hill. Luckily, there is a counter movement in tech and in the startup community that's developing to combat this. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But let's dig into these myths. The first one, older workers are too expensive. We've all heard this, right? Startups have limited budgets, and so they tend to seek people who work for fulfillment and not for money, at least at first. They want to recruit people who have passion for the project and aren't necessarily just interested in the paycheck at the end of the day. And in practice, that is likely to be someone young, but it's just as likely to be a very experienced retiree, a former CIO who is looking for something to do. A limited budget does not mean you can't get experienced talent. And the contentment that we draw as human beings from ordinary experiences like going to work when they're shared with others, this actually increases as we age. That contentment increases as we age, and that makes mentoring relationships especially rewarding for folks. And that is a great value to your organization, to get some free mentors on site. And that pays off for companies. The workforce needs to be more flexible too. One of the things that we've discovered in the research is that more experienced candidates tend to be more flexible or more agile in the original sense of the word. They tend to be more nimble. They're generally less burdened by mortgages than perhaps someone who's just starting out, a young family. They've paid off their student loans. They've got different obligations, and you see a lot more flexibility because of where they are in their life. So salary may not be the determining factor. An older potential employee is looking at the whole package. Compensation, sure, but they're also looking at benefits. They're looking at the work, the values of the company. Who are the people they're going to be working with? What commitment does the organization have to work-life balance? All of those things come into play just as much, if not more, than salary for many older candidates. So it's worth letting go or being willing to explore the idea that older workers are too expensive, because they may not be once you actually get down to it and start considering them. Next myth is that, hey, older people, they just want to retire, man. Don't we all? Turn 65, we're going to go fishing or go traveling around in an RV and go to the Grand Canyon because we never had the time to see it before. That's no longer an option for a lot of today's seniors. Pensions, those businesses are few and far between. And since people today are living longer, retirement savings have to cover living expenses for maybe decades longer than was originally anticipated when those savings accounts were open, right? So consider that. At the same time, consider that there are many retirees who are living quite comfortably who just want to work. They want to contribute. They want to make a difference. They're just as eager to provide value as they were when they were 20 years old. So it's not about age. There was a Transamerica study last October, and one of the things that they discovered is that about 43% of older workers are envisioning kind of a transition when they get to the end of their career. And that may look like reducing working hours or working in a different capacity that's more fulfilling, making a lateral move inside the company or maybe even a different move. And another 20% say that they're going to work as long as they possibly, they're going to work until the wheels fall off. They're never going to retire. Only 1 in 5 workers in this Transamerica study said that they plan to retire when that clock strikes 65. 1 in 5. The rest of them want to be involved in the workplace, whether for financial reasons or personal fulfillment. They've got strong motivation. So some people, I was reading in some of these articles, they're saying 60 is the new 40. And there was an article about Warren Buffett and Richard Branson, and it said 80 is the new 50. I don't know about that math, but the point is that at 65, people aren't just disappearing and going and whittling on a rocking chair. They want to continue to be involved. Yet only 38% of employers offer a flexible enough schedule for this to happen. So food for thought. Last myth I want to talk about today is the idea that you can't bridge the skill gap. For most people, sure, raw horsepower, raw brain, mental horsepower starts to decline after the age of 30, but knowledge and experience, which are really main predictors of job performance, knowledge and experience keep increasing even beyond the age of 8. They keep going. There is ample evidence to assume that traits like drive and curiosity are catalysts for new skill acquisition, even during late adulthood. It doesn't expire when you graduate from college. It doesn't expire when you get that graduate degree that you've gone back to school for. When it comes to learning new things, there is no age limit. And the more intellectually engaged people remain as they get older, the more they're going to be able to contribute to the workforce. There's a professor of management at Wharton named Peter Capelli, and he has a quote saying, if you look at data on older individuals' job performance and abilities, they get mind-blowingly better with age. Those are his words. That's a professor at Wharton saying that people's skills get mind-blowingly better with age, especially in areas that are so increasingly important to success for companies right now, like interpersonal skills and teamwork and flexibility. One other point that is that as we grow older, we tend to become stronger at tasks that demand crystallized intelligence. So it's less about mastering new skills as much as it is about scaffolding onto what we know already and applying our past experience, applying our knowledge to new contexts and new situations. It's frequently seen in adult learners, but is virtually impossible to teach. It's something that just comes from growing up and growing older. The fact is that anybody who's going to be interested in an IT job is somebody who is fascinated by how fast technology is changing and all the new things that are happening, and they're going to be extremely motivated to close any skill gap that there might be. So do not let this idea that old people can't use computers or whatever old tapes you have playing. Don't let those discourage you from hiring someone who's a little bit older than you. So let's talk specifically, what's in it for you? Let's talk about you. Why are older employees good for your company? What is the advantage of bringing different people into your workforce and onto your team? Studies have shown that organizations that actively leverage their older and more experienced workforce will be best positioned for the future of work, as I mentioned earlier. Mercer recently published a report that focuses on older employees' contributions, not just to culture, which is so important because culture eats strategy for breakfast, as you know, but also direct contributions to the bottom line. They're not just nice to have around, they also help your company be more profitable. And we'll talk specifically about that as we continue. But a recent article in Forbes interviewed a healthcare CEO. Her name is Angela Boville, and she is known in that sector as somebody who frequently hires older employees. And she gets asked, why do you hire people over 60 to be on your team? This is healthcare. This is the cutting edge. This is where innovation and change is happening. Why would you do that? And she has a ready answer. Her answer is having older people on staff creates a calming force for an organization. There is less panic. They have seen a lot, and they are less jittery, less anxious than they may have been earlier in their careers. And there's been a study by AARP, and I don't like usually putting a lot of words on slides, but I think this one is important, and I want to share it with you, that researchers at the University of Kentucky surveyed a bunch of companies to see how the employers evaluate their older workers. The respondents said that workers 50 or older are more reliable than the younger generations. They show up for work on time. They have a stronger work ethic. They're less likely to arrive late and leave early. Their life experience makes them better able to manage problems and respond to emergencies and crises and things that require a fire extinguisher. And that can also make them really valuable members to younger people in the firm who are just coming up, who are just emerging in their careers. And finally, these older employees know how to deal with people, and they provide better service to their customers. So even if they're not a former entrepreneur, an older worker is coming to you with a jam-packed resume, not necessarily of just work experience, but also life experience that is going to allow them to make a really important contribution to your company. Are they viral on TikTok? Probably not, but many of their other skills remain in high demand. And most importantly, the years of experience that they've accumulated have helped them determine what works and what doesn't. And sometimes that discretion, that discernment is the secret ingredient that you need to have at your table. So let's talk about what they're bringing to you. First thing they're bringing is skills and experience. You know, if you think about playing the piano, anybody can take lessons. You can learn on YouTube. There's probably an app for that. But there's nothing like listening to somebody who has played for years, right? Older workers, now this may seem like a stereotype, but hear me out. Older workers remember a time when communication was not primarily through email, instant messaging, text, social media. They have advanced communication and people skills, and that's something that some younger junior staff members struggle with. So you have the opportunity to bring somebody in who has a lot of great experience in communication. As the economy continues to get better, companies are discovering that perhaps hiring or promoting the best salesperson to be in charge of managing the sales team maybe wasn't the best strategy, and they're looking for more people with robust management experience. That's what you find with an older employee. In fact, there are some skills that actually are proven to improve with age, and there's this huge extensive research paper called Population Aging and Comparative Advantage. Don't read it, but the upshot is that there are skills that specifically improve with age, like technical writing, like human resources, and problem solving. So think about that. An older worker is bringing that without you even having to ask for it. That's pre-installed. The next thing is they tend to know what they want. Older people have been working their entire lives for the most part, and they're not necessarily searching for the next opportunity the way a younger employee is going to be looking for. You know, you invest so much in recruiting a staff member and onboarding them, and then they bolt. Turnover can be devastating to a small company. But older workers tend to be more interested in stability than they are in moving up the corporate ladder or, as quickly as possible. And according to a survey from the Pew Research Trust, they support what I've said before, which is that so many workers, according to their numbers, 54% of workers older than 65 are still employed because they want to be. They want to be there. They're not just punching a clock. They're there by choice. They're motivated by desire and passion, and they're not going to be a job hopper. And desire and passion is what you need if you're running a startup. If you want somebody who's going to be able to stay with you through the lean times and make a leap of faith, the people with passion and desire are the ones who are going to be a great fit for you. According to a report published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it was very interesting to me to read that the length of time a worker remains with the same employer corresponds, it increases with the age at which the worker started the job. Let me say that again. The length of time a worker remains with the same employer increases with the age at which the worker began the job. And so they found that the average tenure for those between the ages of 55 and 64, it's almost 10 and a half years. And it goes down and down and down. Average tenure for folks 25 to 34 is just 3 years. Now, if you're a startup, you may not know where you're going to be in 3 years, so you may not necessarily be looking for someone who can make a 10-year commitment. But if you are, then this is a group of employees you should be considering hiring. Good work ethic. We've talked about this a little bit, I think. Nearly 6 in 10 respondents in that Pew study cited work ethic as one of the biggest differences between older folks and younger folks. And 3/4 of the respondents said that older people tend to have a better work ethic. 3/4. That's statistically significant. Older workers also tend to bring with them what we might consider as old-fashioned values. The economist called them the values of the greatest generation: patience, distinctiveness, thrift, trust. Those kind of things are cultivated over a lifetime, and those come with you. Additionally, just side point, Randstad Work Solutions did a survey and asked how important being ethical in the workplace was. And 90% of older respondents said it was important or very important. Only 66% of millennials agreed that being ethical was important or extremely important in the workplace. So as you balance out your team, think about the different perspectives that you might want to have. Strong networks, that kind of goes without saying. Somebody who's been in the workforce for years and years is going to have a strong network that they built over time. They have had more time to meet people. They've had more time to network along the way. According to a study from Boston College, they have a center there for the Center of Aging and Work, and the numbers bore it out that 30%, older workers have as much as 30% larger network than some of the smaller networks of younger people. And finally, new perspectives. This isn't a surprise to you. You know that having a truly diverse company is going to bring extraordinary value to you and your founders and your stakeholders and your team and your community. The benefits of embracing an intergenerational workforce have long been demonstrated, and there's data now that say that mixed age teams outperform exclusively older or exclusively younger teams. By having those collisions of ideas, you're more likely to generate value. And so in the years ahead, the companies that are going to really make a mark, who are going to make a name for themselves, are the ones that can capitalize on teams that have both the speed and the energy of youth and the wisdom and experience of older workers. The value is in the combination. It's not an A or B situation. It's combining things. You know, few things of value in our culture, arts, business, sports, what have you, have been accomplished by an individual. So think about how you're putting your team together. But I'm sure you're wondering, yeah, that's all very nice, Julie, but show me the money. So let's talk about the bottom line. Let's talk about accelerators first. I'm sure everybody's familiar with Techstars. They just unveiled a new accelerator. It is called the Future of Longevity Accelerator. Their demo day is December 9th. It's a 13-week program. It's going to be entirely virtual because of COVID. But what they wanted to do was to build strong relationships with thought leaders in the longevity space and leverage a mentor network of industry experts and investors. And some of these companies that they've identified that they want to nurture and accelerate and help step out onto the world stage are really fascinating. 7 of the 10 they picked are run by women, just as a side note. But one of them is called MemoryWell. And that is about giving senior living facilities a digital platform for life storytelling for their residents. That's a startup in this silver tech space that is being nurtured and invested in by Techstars. Another one, let's see a couple of the other ones that they have. One is Upside Home, which is a co-living solution for older adults, or if they're called elder orphans, that they may be widowed or their children live far away, they live alone, but they would like to live in community. So how might they do this? This is a startup that's going to work at solving that problem. Braze Mobility, which means blind spot sensors for people who are in wheelchairs, so they can get around with more confidence. Lots of cool stuff happening. On the VC side, venture capital firms are starting to notice this. One in particular is 1843 Capital, and Tracy Chadwell points out, she's a partner there, that 83% of the wealth in the United States is held by people over 50. And in the understatement of the year, she calls it a naturally attractive market opportunity. The money's out there. We've got to stop leaving it on the table. Word is getting out. Her company, her firm is investing in companies like Hop Skip Drive, which is a startup that helps. It's like an Uber, but for kids and elderly. So it's got a lot of safety considerations built in. Another one is May Mobility, which is leveraging autonomous cars for use by seniors. So a lot of stuff going on. But at the end of the day, it's about who's going to buy your stuff, right? It's about the market. And of course, older Americans are not just a big portion of the workforce, they're a big portion of the population. They're an enormous growing market for a variety of things. And the benefit of having a diverse workforce, including these people with lived experience of being over 40, is that they can be there to help you build and design and market those products. They will have a keen, rich understanding of the market that is simply not going to be possible for somebody who just graduated from college. And if you have any interest in going into this space, and who wouldn't, because it's billions of dollars, having older workers on your team is going to make your solution that much more competitive. I wanted to point out something here. This kind of goes back to the, sorry for, it's a little blurry, but it goes back to the point we were talking about earlier with the skills gap, right? One of the things that this AARP tech survey found out, and it was done just this year, was that adults over 50 are adopting new technology like smartphones, wearables, smart speakers, smart home technology at about the same pace as 18 to 49-year-olds. They're on pace with doing that. Now, with COVID accelerating the shift toward online and expediting older Americans' use of technology, we're going to continue to see that. But there are so many opportunities for innovative startups to use technology to appeal to this population. And I want to give you just a couple of examples. Consider telehealth, right? No doubt about it, COVID was a surprise to everybody. Now, according to McKinsey and the US Department of Health Services, in February of this year, 0.1% of Medicare primary care visits were conducted virtually. By April, 43.5%. were conducted virtually. If you had gone to a telehealth lecture last year, it would have been purely speculative. And one of the concerns they might have had is whether older Americans are really going to use it. They didn't just use it, they embraced it. And Better Medicare Alliance found that the satisfaction that these older Americans have with telehealth is through the roof. 91% said that they had a positive experience. 78% said that they would use telehealth again in the future. So that's one opportunity for you. Medical equipment, another opportunity, obviously, with an aging population. Drones, delivering medication, robots. This one is my favorite, honestly. I want to spend just a minute here. I'm seeing my 5-minute warning. The most well-studied robot that we've got is Paro, and he's a baby harp seal. And the US has recognized it as a medical device. It has built-in sensors that can understand when it's being pet and can learn to repeat those behaviors so that they get more strokes in the future and repeat them. They can, in adults with dementia, this robot, this little guy, can help reduce loneliness, depression, agitation, blood pressure, even the need for some medications. It can be a fix for the isolation that a lot of older adults are feeling. So let's blast through this last bit. People are saying, all right, you persuaded me. How do I keep these people? First thing is you want to develop a cultural mission statement. You need to bake this in at the very beginning. What is the culture that you want? Bring age diversity into your DEI programs. Put it into the DNA of your company. Make sure you're training your recruiters, and when you get big enough, your HR staff, so that they're aware of their own age biases and can get past those and can be really persuasive advocates for your company and great recruiters for these folks. Get people involved. The most underappreciated aspect of work, at least pre-COVID, was that it's a social activity. So give your employees of all ages opportunities to get involved. Invest in professional development. You want to make sure that you are offering things that every age group can benefit from, like negotiating and improving communication. Get flexible. As I said, only 38% of the companies are meeting these employees halfway. So see what you can do to be a more compelling candidate. And this is advice for you. Get a mentor. If you are over 45 and you do not have a mentor under 30, you are doing it wrong. Mentoring works both ways. Get yourself a mentor on the younger side if you're on the older side. If you're on the younger side, vice versa. But make sure it's working both ways. In conclusion, I just want to say that the experienced workforce is a source of talent and competitive advantage that employers need to embrace now. It is the right thing to do. As the global economy ages, ageism bias is becoming a more important issue than ever. Put the words longevity and age into your DEI, into your recruiting strategies. And remember that people of every age are motivated to come to work. If you can create an inclusive, fair, and meaningful experience for older employees, as well as younger ones, you'll find that it's better for your company, that you see more innovation, you see your profits rise, and you're doing the right thing. Thanks. Looks like we've got a couple questions.
We do. So I know that we only have a couple of minutes, and I really want to get through two. I know that Tret is saying only one, but we're going to try to go really
super fast.
Okay, perfect. So number one, I think that is the most important. What do you do if you know that you're being discriminated against due to your age, and how do you handle that?
That's a great question. I guess no is the important word there, isn't it? Yeah. You can suspect. Mm-hmm. If you know that you are being discriminated against, then the advice I would give you is contact an attorney and take action. If you're not sure, if you don't know for sure, I would say investigate, and I'm happy to talk to anybody offline about that. I'm not an attorney.
Get you up. Got it. I know one thing that struck a chord with some people, and I'll kind of tell a little bit of a personal story too. I know that as a young person, 28, I work really hard, long hours, and something that you said kind of struck a chord with some other people. Startup founders often mention that they like to hire young people or young employees as they tend to be more inexpensive due to lack of experience, and they're more hungry for work. So they tend to work longer hours, 50, 60 plus hours, whereas older people want more work-life balance and tend to not work longer hours. What are your thoughts on this? How can startups be mindful of hiring bias of this while balancing salary budgets?
That's a great question. And certainly it's about balancing your team, right? You want some people who are going to pull an all-nighter. You want probably somebody who's got a sleeping bag under their desk. but you also want somebody who's going to say, hello, everybody, it's Christmas Eve, and we need to take a break. As with any team, it's about balance and complementing things. So you know as a founder what kind of energy you need, but more experience is never a bad thing. Having somebody who's willing to put the brakes on going full speed ahead, if only for a quick conversation, provides value to your company. So I say absolutely recruit those go-getters. Just make sure you've got some balance on your team so everybody gets a good night's sleep once in a while.
That makes sense. And something that really struck a chord with me that you said is that older workers are much more valuable mentors as well. And that I know I was reading an article by the startup on Medium talking about how millennials, specifically younger millennials who are going through a financial crisis for the first time, are looking for mentors who are boomers who have gone through multiple crises.
Like lived it.
Exactly, who have lived it and know that experience. And so I think that that's something that's super important that startups and corporations should be super aware about as well. So I think that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for this wonderful talk. It was great learning, especially as a young person who is looking to start a business later on. So really appreciate it. And if you have any more questions, I'm sure Huli can answer those offline elsewhere.
Yes, absolutely. Connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with me on the Twitters, whatever you need.
All over the place. Okay.
All over the place.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye. Awesome. So now we're going to transition into networking. If you've never been on Hopin before and used the networking feature, if you look on the left-hand panel of the Hopin screen, you'll see a lot of different icons, all the different places that you can go, like the reception, the main stage, what have you. Towards the bottom, you'll see the networking area. And once you press that button, it'll take you to a place where you'll connect one-on-one with people who are also looking to network, and you'll have 5 minutes to chat with each other. You can also share your information with people directly through the platform and have a great conversation. I know that I think that you have to click connect both ways in order to get people's information. So there's a little bit of a barrier if you don't maybe want to connect with that person. It's pretty safe. So we'll see you in the networking area. See you later.